12 years of mystery, speculation, and silent strength, Suzie Fletcher is stepping into the spotlight to share the truth you've all been dying to hear. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to lose your anchor and start life over from scratch? What hidden pain drives someone to leave everything behind and return to where it all began? After more than a decade of silence, Suzie Fletcher is ready to unveil the heartbreak that led her away from the American West and back to the embrace of England's rolling hills. Brace yourself for an emotional journey as she lays bare the secret sorrow that reshaped her destiny and discover how tragedy became the spark for her rise to stardom. She stated recently, "Rob's laughter once filled my workshop. His loss in 2013 shattered me. Across oceans, I came home to England, seeking solace in leather and thread. On the repair shop, I mend broken things, saddles, bags, hearts, each stitch a whisper of him. Grief carved me, but love rebuilds me. I'm Suzie, crafting hope from pain, proving even torn lives can be mended into something beautiful. Keep watching. What happens at the end will render you speechless and emotional." To see why this is so important, we must start at the very beginning. Suzie Fletcher, a leather expert and kind storyteller, was once again at the center of a developing drama in the soft golden light of the barn where antiques come to life. Behind the scenes of the repair shop, the quiet, human drama of emotion itself is unfolding, not the drama of a scuffed saddle or a cracked heirloom. Recent disclosures have highlighted the deep bond between the items Suzie restores and the people who entrust them to her care, as well as the toll that emotional tales can have, even on a craftsman as experienced and calm as Suzie. The production team first noticed it while filming the most recent series. The tremor in Suzie's voice when she was listening to a guest tell the story of a treasured item. The sudden catch in her breath when she realized that the leather she was handling had witnessed a lifetime of memories. These were moments of emotional resonance rather than technical difficulty, and they accumulated until the director subtly requested that the filming be stopped one afternoon. Tools were put away, cameras ceased to roll, and the barn was quiet for a few minutes, save for the team's collective silence as they collected themselves. Constantly calm, Suzie just closed her eyes and took a calming breath. Her fellow craftspeople, including metalworkers, watchmakers, and woodworkers, followed suit. The weight of intimate tales, exposed in that cozy, inviting environment, was something they had all experienced. The event was a revelation rather than a minor production glitch. Even Suzie Fletcher, who has dedicated her professional life to restoring leather items that have been tarnished by life, was moved to tears by the stories she heard. She talked openly about how the show's philosophy, listening without passing judgment and respecting each owner's story, could occasionally become too much for even the experts behind the bench. In an interview with the Feels Like Healing podcast, in a steady but emotionally charged voice, she acknowledged, "There have been times where we have actually had to stop filming because the sharing and people's candor and willingness to share had a profound impact on all of us. Hearing someone else's story is wonderful because everyone has a story to tell, and it's done without passing judgment, and is likely what they need to feel better." Oxfordshire, southeast England, a county renowned for its beautiful countryside and rich riding heritage, is where Suzie Fletcher was born in 1961. Suzie was raised in a working-class household and was exposed to creativity and craftsmanship at a young age. Her father worked as a watchmaker, a job that required patience and accuracy, and her mother was a talented seamstress with a knack for creating and designing clothing. Suzie's future course was significantly influenced by this fusion of artistic and technical influences, which laid the groundwork for her eventual profession as a master saddler. Suzie's early years were characterized by an intense and instantaneous love for horses, which she characterizes as instinctive. As evidence of her natural curiosity and hands-on nature, she frequently recalls vivid memories of making homemade saddles and bridles for her rocking horse as a young child. Her love of horses was more than a passing trend. It was a lifelong obsession that would influence both her personal and professional decisions. Suzie's father's painstaking attention to detail and her mother's skill with fabric combined to give her a special basis for fusing design and functionality. Suzie was not an only child. She grew up with her co-star on The Repair Shop and her younger brother, Steve Fletcher, who would go on to become a horologist, an expert in clock and watch repair. The siblings' shared upbringing and love of fine craftsmanship helped to create a strong bond between them. Beyond Suzie's parents, the Fletcher family had a long history of skilled trades. Steve would subsequently disclose that their grandfather established the clock workshop in Oxfordshire in 1910, a company that has been in the family for 3 generations. Suzie's decision to pursue a career in saddlery was definitely influenced by this tradition of practical expertise. When Suzie's own horse's saddle broke when she was a teenager, it was a turning point in her journey into saddlery. She sought out Oxfordshire saddler Ken Langford, determined to learn about its making. Suzie decided to disassemble the saddle after Ken told her it couldn't be fixed, carefully examining each part before trying to put it back together. She discovered her calling as a result of this practical investigation. A testament to the lasting influence of his guidance, Ken, who is now in his 80s, took Suzie under his wing after realizing her tenacity and innate talent. He became not only her mentor, but also a lifelong friend and second father. Suzie started receiving formal training in the saddlery art at the age of 14 in the middle of the 1970s. Before continuing her education at London's Cordwainers College, which is well known for its leatherworking and footwear programs, she worked as an apprentice for Ken. Her technical skills and comprehension of leather as a material were refined during this educational phase. Suzie attained the esteemed title of Master Saddler by the end of her training, a distinction that is a testament to her decades of commitment and skill. She found a niche by combining her passion for horses with her artistic tendencies, specializing in the design and manufacture of saddles for women. Suzie has been working with leather for more than 40 years, restoring bridles, saddles, and other items. She used age-old saddlery methods that had been handed down through the generations of English master saddlers in her Oxfordshire workshop, which turned into a haven. Her career was more than just a job. It was a passion that enabled her to combine her inherited skills for accuracy and design with her passion for horses. When Suzie relocated to Colorado in the late 1980s or early 1990s, her life drastically changed. She had only planned to stay 2 years to work as a master saddler, but she ended up staying in the American West for 22 years. She started this chapter of her life with a brief affair with an American man named Rob, a heavy equipment machine operator who Suzie described as brawny and incredibly strong both physically and mentally. They were married, and Suzie adopted a tough, ranching lifestyle that was very different from her Oxfordshire upbringing. "This English chick plopped right into America's heartland," she once said to The Times. "Sometimes you would see tumbleweed rolling by. However, there were significant obstacles hidden beneath the surface of this exciting life." Suzie has courageously shared the less pleasant parts of her marriage in her memoir and in interviews since. Despite his initial charm, Rob turned into an emotionally abusive person who used isolation and gaslighting as means of control. In one especially horrible instance, Rob deceived Suzie into believing her brother Steve was terminally ill in order to break off her relationship with her family. On the What I Wish I'd Known podcast, Suzie described this manipulation, describing how she eventually faced the lie and realized it was a part of a larger pattern of coercive behavior. "Previously, I was unable to justify this behavior," she said. "I must have earned that, because this man loved me. Without a doubt, I didn't deserve that." Suzie Fletcher's world used to be centered around the soft grain of leather, the soft click of stitching needles, and the constant hum of workshop equipment, all of which are part of the quiet rhythms of an artisan's life. Far from the undulating hills of her home country of England, she and her husband Rob had established a life together in the United States for over 20 years, one that was full of passion and purpose. Despite not having children, the couple's strong and affectionate marriage provided them with a strong sense of companionship and respect that anchored their days. Suzie's passion was leatherworking, while Rob's passions were engineering and the great outdoors. Together, they created a home that was warm, creative, and brimming with the peaceful contentment of two like-minded people. However, life dealt an unexpected blow, as it frequently does. Rob started feeling unusually tired and uncomfortable in the beginning of 2012. Rob was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, a disease known for its aggressive progression and poor prognosis, which turned out to be far more serious than they had hoped. It was like a hammer blow of news. Over the course of one afternoon, the world they had so meticulously built, complete with the aroma of tanned hides and the hope of future endeavors, was abruptly contrasted with the specter of disease. The months that followed demonstrated the tenacity and frailty of love. With characteristic tenacity, Rob accepted his diagnosis and resolved to maximize his remaining time. For her part, Suzie turned into his unwavering caregiver and supporter. Though her thoughts frequently strayed to hospital hallways and late-night discussions about death, she continued to work in her Colorado studio in between treatments. Even though she feared the end of the man she loved, every saddle repair or handbag refurbishment served as a bittersweet reminder of life's continuity. Rob passed away from his illness in 2013, 8 months after the diagnosis. His world was irrevocably changed when Suzie, who was only a year older than him, was thrust into widowhood while he was only in his early 50s. It was a significant loss. The workshop that used to be filled with casual conversation and laughter felt too big and too quiet. When Suzie realized that no amount of skill could replace what she had lost, her hands, which had become so skilled at bringing life back into worn leather, trembled. Following Rob's death, Suzie found herself at a crossroads. Her life had been geographically, emotionally, and professionally connected with his for over 2 decades. Their shared interests and a network of friends who had taken on the role of surrogate family had supported their expat life in the U.S. The bonds that once drew her across the Atlantic were now weakened by loneliness and loss, and she felt even more cut off from her own family in England without Rob. Suzie returned to the UK because of this sense of displacement, as well as the practical need for assistance. The choice was both painful and essential. Leaving the workshop where she had spent decades perfecting her craft meant leaving behind routines that had provided comfort in their own way. But in the midst of her grief, the possibility of seeing her siblings again, especially her brother Steve, who is a well-known clock and watch restorer, provided a lifeline. When Suzie returned to England, she was surrounded by the familiar rhythm of her early years, the gentle green of pastures, the far-off lowing of cattle, and the steady trickle of rain on slate roofs. The stone walls of the little cottage she moved into, close to her family, served as a silent reminder of continuity and heritage. She eventually established a small studio in a repurposed barn on the outskirts of her brother's property, and started to regain her workshop practice. Her returned tools, sewing horses, hammers, and prized awls, felt both old and new, each one a reminder of the life she had lived and the abilities she still possessed. She found that healing was neither quick nor linear. On some days, the pain of being gone was like a physical burden on her chest, and the scent of leather made her cry instead of feel better. However, there were also instances of unanticipated grace, such as the first time she finished a restoration without stopping to recall Rob's kind words of support, or the day she understood that she could once more lose herself in the rhythm of stitching, with the sound of the needle purposefully breaking the quiet. Suzie's path crossed with a new opportunity during this time of personal restoration, one that would provide her with unexpected fame as well as newfound energy. The BBC was hiring for a show called The Repair Shop that focuses on saving and repairing treasured family heirlooms. Producers were looking for craftspeople who could evoke stories from objects just as much as from their owners, craftsmen whose warmth and empathy matched their expertise. Suzie's reputation had existed for a long time. The restoration community had heard about her skill at leatherworking and her kind, comforting demeanor. The promise of a new chapter came with the invitation. In many respects, joining the repair shop marked a sea change. Under the television lights, Suzie was once again in her element, but in a different setting. Her bench was covered in scuffed suitcases, old saddles, and cherished handbags, each with a story to tell. While working, she would hear the owner share stories about her early years, adventures, or the heartwarming backstory of a wedding bag. Her hands would move carefully in each situation, selecting the appropriate hide, matching the color of the thread, and using both conventional and contemporary conservation techniques. As she restored these objects' emotional connections, as well as their physical integrity, viewers watched in awe. Suzie found the experience to be surprisingly healing. Every repair turned into a communal act. She paid tribute to Rob's memory by giving every project her whole focus and bringing the compassion she had developed during her darkest moments to her work. Audiences responded well to her cool-headed, collected explanations of why a particular stitch was required and how a patch would maintain the leather's suppleness. They saw in her not only a technician, but also a storyteller and healer. When fame arrived, it wasn't overpowering or conspicuous. Suzie didn't lose her sense of reality, seeing every compliment as an homage to the art form rather than to herself. She frequently discussed her belief that objects hold the essence of the people who cherished them, and the honor of working on objects infused with personal history. In interviews, she talked about how her personal loss had increased her empathy. Having experienced the anguish of saying goodbye, she viewed every repair as a way to preserve memories. After Steve's persistent encouragement, Suzie half-jokingly offered her leather expertise, saying, "If they need anyone to do leather, I'm your gal." He told stories about the show's mission to restore treasured family heirlooms. Suzie joined the show at the beginning of its second season in 2017, despite her initial resistance, a choice she now calls one of the most fulfilling of her life. Jay Blades is the host of The Repair Shop, a group of skilled artisans who revitalize sentimental items. As the on-site leather and saddle specialist, Suzie demonstrated her exceptional abilities by repairing a Louis Vuitton trunk and restoring a rocking horse saddle. Viewers were immediately moved by her work and appreciated both her technical skill and emotional intelligence. Because of its widespread appeal, the show, which had previously aired on BBC Two, was later moved to a primetime slot on BBC One. Suzie has given The Repair Shop credit for assisting her in her internal healing. "Being a part of The Repair Shop has healed me from the inside out," she writes in her 2023 memoir, The Sun Over the Mountains. "Utilizing my abilities in such a constructive manner has made me happy and confident." The show's encouraging atmosphere and the chance to positively impact others' lives served as a salve for her loss and traumatic experiences. She has praised the team's unity, saying that when she encounters a problem, they ask, "What can we do to help?" Suzie continues to be a prolific craftswoman outside of the show. In order to respect sustainability, she still designs saddles, coats, and luggage, frequently utilizing recycled materials. To spread awareness of her autobiography and tell her tale of healing and hope, she went on a book tour in 2023. One of her dream projects, which reflects her unwavering love for her work, is restoring a saddle from the early 1900s, possibly from a horse-drawn coach or the military. Although Suzie Fletcher has never publicly acknowledged these figures, her estimated net worth ranges from $1 million to $5 million. Her lengthy career as a saddler, her TV appearances, and her memoir are the main sources of her wealth. Suzie's impact as a craftswoman and storyteller, however, is what really defines her legacy. In 2025, she will be about 63 years old, and she is still inspiring both viewers and aspiring artists. Her journey from a young child in Oxfordshire who had a fascination with horses to a professional saddler in Colorado, and ultimately to a well-liked television personality, is a testament to tenacity, inventiveness, and the therapeutic value of art. Through The Repair Shop and her own words, Suzie's story serves as a reminder that beauty can be found in the restoration of both things and the human spirit, even in the face of loss and adversity.